afternoon. We just had the Pledge of Allegiance. It's Wednesday, April 12th, 2017, 1 p.m. This was a workshop that was scheduled after the workshop last Wednesday. And the purpose of the meeting is to discuss the 2017-18 fiscal year budget, and it's an update. And we want to begin. Accountant Louise Kallstrom, please. Yes. And do you need any help from from John or from Charles in the audio video room, or? Yes.
Do I put it in this side?
Yeah, let me take a look.
My computer's different.
Yeah, put it right in that one.
Sometimes you get to flip it for the USB.
Anthony Batty, Veteran Services. Would you put that on her desk, please?
There should be a couple of USB ports there.
There's one for you for the record. You can stack it wherever.
Here, Charles, give you a quick.
Really good guy.
hand here.
Oh. So we unplugged. What happened to our splitter that we bought? No, we did. Hey, John. Did I bring you back some stuff? USB splitter. Yeah, let's see. Hold on. Okay, good. Momentito. Oh, this is all locked up. Uh-oh, Charles, you have the key? It's unlocked.
It's a big one.
Cables. 4-port flex hub. Very good. All right.
So we're all set?
Yeah. Oh, you're good for that. Oh, we're good for now? Okay, good. Thank you very much, Charles. All right.
Miss Louise.
All right.
Excuse me.
Louise, do you want a pointer? No, I don't have a pointer. I don't like this pad here. Okay, well, this is what I have for you.
You want to introduce yourself, please?
Louise Kallstrom, County Accountant.
John, could we turn that one light off over there? Or which one? I guess.
Someone else
oh,
might
maybe.
have the clicker on this one.
Is that on the back end, Terry?
It's that dimmer switch on the pole behind you there, John Jesuit.
Oh, is that what it is? Ah, thank you. Okay. So we want to, is everybody in the audience okay? Or we want to go let's kick on at least one light here then.
That's a good idea.
Okay.
I was thinking one in the audience.
Yeah. Can we do that?
Why don't you turn
Terry?
on that one?
Yeah, Terry. Okay, thank you. Yeah, that's a little bit better.
What happened to this one?
That does.
Uh-oh.
Oh, it overrides it. Okay.
You got a different one you can turn on, Terry, or no? No, they're both on. Oh, can you turn one of
Turn
them
one off?
How about the other one? Okay.
Just pull that one up
All right.
slightly.
Pull down.
Just
Yeah.
slightly.
Pull it down, John.
No, I don't think it's gonna
We're
work.
giving him different signals.
Hold on.
But he's got that all
No,
the
that
way
one's
up.
no good. I guess we'll do this one.
Fine.
Okay.
A-okay.
Okay, so what I did was I put in everything for that we talked about at the general session on April the 5th. So the recommendations that we went over and were approved by the board are in here. There's also a couple of more things in here. There's a PERS increase, so when I put out the worksheets for all of the department heads, I went ahead and did all the the payroll adjustments, which not only just the positions we did, I don't want to say the word deleted, but we
Basically, didn't feel
we didn't
removed
fill
or
them,
took out.
so that I
Correct.
didn't budget for them. So I took those positions out that we agreed to. I put in the PERS rate. There was a small adjustment to a workers' comp rate. And there was a discussion last year at budget committee meetings. There was a 1.5% for workers' comp that was going to the workers' comp reserve. And they wanted it to go, half of that to go to the workers' comp reserve and half of it go to the building projects fund. And that actually was never done. And some of the departments were still getting the 1.5%. Some of them were getting 0.75% to workers' comp, but the other part did not go to, was not budgeted for and is not going to the capital project. So I put that in all the payrolls so that that is going to happen for next year.
Okay.
And then I did a few things in the budget for the non-departmental. There were a few things listed on the CBAC recommendations. There's a budgeted a $50,000 salary irregular payout, so I took that out. And I did leave the legal and professional services because of unknowns like negotiations or settlements that we might have to pay professional fees for. And I took down quite a bit the liability and property insurances. But I did leave the $100,000 other material and services because that is a contingency type placeholder. So anyway, that's what is in these figures. So the general fund balance, you notice, is still $1,094,357, short of being balanced. So that's where I am.
And as I understood it, Louise, this is Commissioner Huxley, that the worksheets have been sent to all of the
Yes.
departments and officials and, okay.
And I just want to say again, I'm sorry that I put April 14th to send those back. It should be April 24th. Sorry.
Just give him an extra week.
Give them a lot
10
more
days.
time than I sit in my email, so.
So does,
So I'm not sure. I think what we still need to discuss is balancing the budget and finding out how we take care of the $1,094,000. So,
it's my expectation or, assumption after the direction last Wednesday that then the respective departments would look at that issue or that subject, that deficit, if you will, and make suggested cuts as they see appropriate. I think some of the comments that came back Wednesday, and they were, I think, accurate, is that the commissioners shouldn't be, saying, we'll go with this recommendation from CBAC or that recommendation or something at this point in time, was to provide them with the worksheets.
I don't know. I need to provide
Okay.
a balanced budget, and in order to do that, I think it is the responsibility of the commissioners
Okay.
to balance this budget and give direction to
To
the
the-
county heads and myself
Okay.
on how that
Okay.
needs to be done. The three recommendations that I had that were not used in this is the carryover, using $450,000 of the carryover, and using $500,000 of the
Road fund.
road funds, and also the furlough days. Those were the ones that were not approved.
Correct.
I did go through the recommendations from CBAC. I just kind of scribbled it on this page. So I was trying to do a calculation of these because a lot of them did not have dollars attached to the recommendations. So on their recommendation number 6, 6A was the deputy elections clerk, and that was already done on my recommendations and it's already done in here. And B was the open administrative position in the BOC office, and that I also did. And then C was emergency services overtime budget, and the total of that is $13,967. And then on 7, it said eliminate funding from the county general fund to the departments. One was surveyor. I did get an email from the surveyor to about his budget, and he did some payroll proposals in that total $11,340,000. The total support for the survey is $14,000. See if it's up there.
About 10 down,
Yeah.
8 down.
Yeah, is 26,559. So I don't think I could eliminate all of that, but I could do 11,340 of that. The number 8 was close the cable TV fund and move the resources, including county council, into the general fund. Well, the annual revenue from that is $140,000 transfer that I'd have to eliminate out of revenues in the general fund. So that takes it down to $100,000. I don't know about moving the county council fully into the general fund, but if put it back into admin funds, it would impact the general fund about $35,000. So that's a $65,000 of expenditure reduction. And then there would be a one-time bringing over to the general fund a transfer of the cable TV carryover balance, which is estimated to be about $120,000 by the end of this year. But that would be a one-time revenue. Number 9 says close county lands fund and move the resources into the county general fund, and that has a balance of $20,000. So outside of the number 5 was the juvenile department by 30%. I am not exactly sure how the juvenile department would run with a full 30%. The notes that were from Director Troust was $129,000 in payroll costs and another $7,000 in materials and services. I don't know if he's willing to completely do 30%, but some or part of that could be used. But those are the only other recommendations that I have right now.
I think there was also discussion, whether they were on here specifically or not, but there were also discussions, and certainly in the meeting minutes of that group, for 30% scenario, 60% scenario, reductions.
Across the board.
And certainly there were comments during the last meeting. It would be my suggestion that, and there were, well, clearly that I think with a deficit, aside from what some of the comments that you made, but without changing the large dollar amounts that we said, take those out and we'll see what it is. We did that, which is 1.1 million approximately. I would suggest that the department heads and officials look at a reduction, as it was discussed, what reductions they could make in their respective departments. It's not across the board. I think we all agreed to that. You can't have the same thing for everybody. But to look at making the reductions and interfacing with you on that as they work that way to try and balance that 1.1 million with reductions within the respective departments.
Mr. Chair.
However they choose to do that. That's my suggestion.
Thank you. Did we,
Commissioner Boyce?
with the exception of the Sheriff's Department, did we agree that there would not be across-the-board cuts if we had to go that route?
I don't know that we agreed, but I think we talked that it wasn't realistic to say that you can do anything given all the different departments.
Okay, thank you for that
And make
clarification.
it across the same for everybody.
Okay, and one more quick question. Just rewinding a little bit, is there something with PERS that we're not aware of that perhaps was unexpected?
Every 2 years, the PERS board changes the PERS rate, and this year is the second year of the previous PERS rate, so it is scheduled to July 1st increase for anybody who is actually on PERS.
So can you make an estimate on how that might affect the 1.1?
It's already in there.
It's already in.
It is, excuse me.
Yes.
After that, I sent to Louise when we sat down,
Yeah.
with the actual percent increases depending upon was it tier 1, tier 2, whatever. And the total was approximately 100, from what I recall, 150,000, and general fund was about half of that from my
70
memory.
something.
Yeah, something like that.
I haven't figured the exact dollar amount, but it's,
But
yeah,
that's already been
But it's
factored
already
into
all
this,
in there,
because
yes.
it was a known
it's a known.
non-negotiable
Known payroll
Okay.
adjustment.
expense.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Mr. Gould?
I'm just thinking that process might work where the departments go back and do whatever they can do, and then we come back and look at this again. Is that what you're envisioning?
That's what I would suggest,
Mhm.
yes. But not in 3 weeks, but, correct. Very, very soon, correct. But, or with that guidance to do that. And I say, it was discussed, or certainly reasonably suggested in the meeting last week, that it shouldn't be the board that says you will do, go down to a 4-day week, or you will do this, or you will do that. It was, hey, give us the sheets, with some guidance as far as the magnitude of the cuts, and let us see what we can do. Let us be the ones that decide that, not the board, and I agree
So what
with
you're
that.
doing is saying this is a starting point, and if it doesn't come up the 1.1, then we're going to have
Well, I
to
would
do
say,
something else.
then we would have to go further, but I would say that to approach the savings of the 1.1 in that direction, correct, versus just say, okay, so we have 2 big dump dollars here that we'll use these funds, put them back. That was what we didn't want to do, or the direction not to do last week. And I think these 2 sheets have helped see better,
Right.
where those costs are. At least it was help for me.
Well, Mr. Chair, I'd like to present to the board, I think something that will add to
Okay.
the discussion here.
Commissioner Boyce?
Thank you. I have 3 different options, 3 different proposals that balances the budget that I'm going to present to, if you wouldn't mind, hand these down for me. And it might even be possible to ask for board action today, one way or the other.
Now, this is a workshop.
Well, maybe a consensus. There's 3 of them, one for council huddle as well. Now, let's see, I gave you one. So just a brief summary on each one. This starts with the 1.1 million from Mrs. Kallstrom, the shortfall there.
Is that
And-
the same sheet, Commissioner
Yes,
Boyce?
it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's a combination that I've worked up that is with the CBAC proposal, and I want to give that some really strong affirmation, as well as the tremendous work that Mrs. Kallstrom has done. Obviously, the option of using the road funds and using the carryover either in combinations or one or the other, is critically important to what we're faced with in the next budget. And there's been a lot of discussion on yes, no, maybe, heavens no, etc. I was really surprised last meeting we had that, if I understood correctly, that my fellow board members recommended that we not use any of the carryover. And I'm still trying to come to grips with that and how that serves the best interest of the people of this county. That's money that's already been allocated, collected, and targeted for the services that we have to provide as commissioners, or that we have to support to provide. So these proposals, based on how critically important I think it is to use a carryover, sometimes referenced as a surplus. I don't know if that's the proper term, but I think everybody knows what we're talking about here. By the way, if anybody needs a copy of this, I can sure provide that. I do have a couple extra here. But the bottom line is all three of these proposals balance the budget. And the first one, if the board would indulge me here, is about $700,000 of the carryover, between 70 and 75%, is on the table. This is my preferred option, by the way, number one, and that would be $400,000 added to the budget from road fund reserves, which was supported, needless to say, by both county accountant and the Citizens Budget Advisory Committee. Those two figures, the 694 and the 400,000, gets us to the shortfall of 1.1 million. If you go to, and I can answer questions on this if you have any, Chair Huxley and Commissioner Gold. The second proposal is also uses actually about 90% of the carryover, so it's almost 900,000, but it does leave a little bit, and it goes with 3% of the total general fund contribution as deductions. It remains, as does Proposal 1, with a 5% cut in materials and services. And it also, 3% across the board of everybody's budget except for the sheriff. And obviously these proposals could use some refinement, but generally, correct me if I'm wrong, the math works out fairly well. Although I apologize, I just got it to you a couple of hours ago. But I think there are some prudent options here. The third one starts with the same $1.1 million shortfall. It factors in $130,000 for county accountant. County administrator, forgive me, which I remain very much against. And in fact, I'll hand out, I had the opportunity to spend time with Commissioners Leanne Thompson from Clatsop County, and also at the same time, about a 45-minute meeting with Commissioner May Hudson of Jefferson County. And they couldn't have been more helpful and interested in offering some information on that. So I won't bog you down, but I'm going to do a handout here. And basically what it says is that Clatsop County has had 9 different county managers in the last 15 years. They seem to have some stability right now, but pass those down if you would, please, Mr. Chair. And the reason the Jefferson County county administrator is so successful is because he moved down from Washington. He loves it there, and he's working for a very reasonable fee, and he just has a tremendous reputation, and they're going to do everything they can to hang on to him. We can talk more about that later if you like. So back to proposal number 3. I budgeted in, with the help of some wise people, $130,000 salary package. But that also takes, in addition, the 70% of the carryover for about $700,000 also. And then the big one is 7.5% cuts across the board to the county departments. So I appreciate your consideration on that. back to the work that the Citizens Budget Advisory Committee made and the work the county accountant has made. This is a combination, and I'm trying to do everything I possibly can with the council of some very wise people to buy us some time till we figure out how we're going to raise revenue. And that is the biggest thing that's facing this board other than public safety. I have a list of priorities that I'll perhaps later on in this meeting offer you. But that's the work before us, and we have some opportunities to turn this disadvantage into our advantage. And I think number one or two is something that has some very sound merit. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Did you have any questions for Commissioner Boyce, Commissioner Gould?
I'm just thinking if we were to take, instead of 7.5, take 10%, because already we've been talking about 30% cuts. Just make that as kind of a goal for the departments to see what they could do with that. And the total budget is what? So 10% would be what? My eyeballs don't work too well.
That's, if you're going to use this
If we took,
7 million figure,
so that'd be about 700,000.
but there's not a lot of cuts you can make to this 365,000.
What was that?
There's not a lot of cuts you can make to the 365,000. That's other requirements. It's there's a lot of dollars in there that cannot be changed. So
Oh, on the 365?
yeah,
Okay. And so the 7,050,000 here, you couldn't take a true 10% of that, is that what you're saying?
yes, yeah.
You'd have to exclude the 365, so that would bring it down to about, what? Six.
6.
Yeah, so that would be 660,000. Just a thought.
What was the percent you were thinking of again there?
Maybe 10% instead of 7.5. I was just looking at your last. If we did that and then took some from the carryover, I think we could hit it.
We're asking the department heads to, in that case, to
Just look
finance
for-
a county administrator. And,
I'm sorry, what was that?
yeah, you heard me.
I know I did.
I'm sorry, county administrator.
What was
I
the-
think that's in that. it's in
Possibly
that
there might be
package.
other ways of financing a county
Yeah.
administrator,
Look
so.
at the sheriff's department, they are managing their 40 people, road department's managing their 20, give or take. You know, obviously my point is what's left to manage. So.
So I just want to remind you, there's already a 3% cut in these figures. So what you're saying is a total of a 13% cut, not a 10% cut.
That's not what I'm saying.
I mean, that's,
Right.
if you say 10%, you're actually, because there's already 3% taken on all of these figures.
On the 130,000 that Commissioner Boyce has here, he's adding it to that. Now, I had understood, you know, at least from the mechanics that we had discussed, that you had increased the commissioner costs to all reflect full-time salaried commissioners.
I did, but that's not in the general fund. That's
okay.
outside the general
Correct.
fund and Fund
Correct.
111. However, the impact of the fees has not been calculated yet.
Can't
because
be.
I need
Correct.
to have department budgets before I could spread those fees, so I don't know what the impact of the general fund
Correct.
will be from different scenarios. Like if you took the CBAC's recommendation number 8, it's almost it's over $70,000 of county council to go back to admin fees. So that's going to have an impact on the general fund and on everybody's budget too. So, and then putting in full budgets for all three commissioners, which is not the case for this year.
Correct.
It increased those fees also.
But that was a
But I don't
means
know, but
for
the spread is
funding.
based on everybody's budget, so I mean, I could calculate it every 2 days, every time it gets changed, but it's really hard to keep up
Okay.
with something like that.
Mr. Chair?
Commissioner Boyce?
Yeah, incidentally, all three of these proposals consolidate BOC office with finance. I think that's almost inevitable where we're headed, I believe. Thank you.
Oh, I think we're headed for more consolidation than just that, Commissioner, but.
Okay, thank you.
I don't think that was there was no monetary change
Not
from
at
consolidation.
this time,
We had
because I already took that
talked about
position
that.
out.
Correct. So there's
And there
no
could be
monetary
some
change.
additional costs because of moving.
Yep.
And then renovating the spaces that we leave to be able to rent those spaces. So there'll be some costs associated with that.
That's kind of another subject, though. I'm not convinced at all we need to move. You know, it's a bigger office, but time will tell.
I think the point that was being made there, though, is that that cost is already I think it was 28,000 or whatever it was.
Yeah,
has been
that
taken
is
into
already-
account, and consolidation was not.
Big monetary gain.
It was not even in the basically the scenario or the picture or in the equation from a monetary standpoint. Correct.
Understand. You look like you're hesitating, Miss.
I have not, once again, have not done the admin fees spread in a new way. So what this reflects is this year's admin fees without any adjustments yet. So the 28,000 really isn't hitting here yet, but neither is the increase in the commissioners that it's almost a wash, I think. So there's, in a way, it is included in here, but I have not spread admin fees yet to the general fund for this year, for this budget year.
We can certainly go on the concept that consolidation is probably going to save some money long term.
Oh, I don't think there's any question,
Thank
but
you.
that's not part of the dollar amounts because we just don't know.
We're in agreement.
So proposal number 1 from Commissioner Boyce was basically leaving the status quo budget, but moving things back that we had just moved out, or directed to move out last Wednesday.
I think there's a little bit of difference. It was
Well, but-
500,000 from the road fund instead of 400.
Well, true, but
Yeah.
minor, okay, but it was taking 2 items and moving them back
Yeah.
to go back to a status quo budget
Well,
effectively.
it's not a status quo budget. A bunch of adjustments have already been made,
Well,
so it's
correct.
not status quo. Status quo to this, but it's not status quo to what we started with.
But
Status quo would be this year's budget and just doing these 2 things, and that's not correct. Because there's a lot of adjustments to this.
but not from a personnel standpoint.
Yes, to a
Okay.
personnel standpoint, because it has
Okay.
2.
Well, true, the 2 that you
3
said, but those weren't staffed anyway, but they were being,
They're
or
budgeted
had
for,
not
and
been,
that's
they
a
were budgeted.
status quo
Correct,
budget.
correct, okay. And again, Commissioner Boyce's question on proposal number 2 was 200,000 was basically cut 3% of the total general fund contribution. Was that across the board or unknown, basically, but just 3%
Across the board.
somewhat? Across
Yeah.
the board. But we know that, I think in many of the law enforcement issues or scenarios there, that's not going to be the case, or probably will not be the case, correct? Or incorrect?
Yes, that is
Okay.
correct.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the problem with doing it
Yeah.
across the board, because
Well,
every
yeah.
department's a
Yeah.
little different, so.
We'll figure out a way to make that the
Okay.
exception, though. That's part of the refinement.
I had also, and it's not to get off on a side subject too much, but I'd sent Louise, or the accountant, a question this morning, or late this morning, on some of these revenues, especially for law enforcement. That's on the 2000, it's on the, well, this sheet that's up there now on the screen. That came out, as I recall, about 670,000, 680,000 for those, the ones from the sheriff criminal civil down to sheriff 911 dispatch.
Oh, okay, the yellow part.
So
Yeah, is
what
yours
you
yellow?
have-
Okay, yours is yellow,
Yeah.
okay.
But what you have still includes the search rescue, these three, and the corrections. So when the number that you're showing has the revenues from all of those. That's what you asked me for, was 8 departments.
I think there was 8 here. 1, 2, 3,
Yeah.
4, 5, 6, 7 or 8.
Yeah. But that number that you just said is not what's up here, because it includes the revenues from search and rescue, marine, forest, and adult parole and probation. Your sheet does.
And when you say your sheet, this sheet,
That sheet I gave you this morning, yes. The sheet that the numbers that I gave you this morning on the revenues for the 8 departments of the sheriff.
okay, was that after I emailed you this
Yeah,
morning?
Yes.
Okay, I haven't even looked at that then.
Oh, okay.
Okay, that's where I'm, okay.
But could you make sure I get a copy, please?
Okay.
So is this the same as that? Because I just
Yeah,
printed this off this
yeah,
morning.
this is
Yeah.
what you had been sent out to
Yes.
everyone,
Okay.
basically.
But when you said the revenues was $8,000, $100,000.
I just added
It includes
those.
more departments than these, doesn't it?
No, I added those up, and that's what that came up to, when I added,
7. Okay,
when I added those up, it came up to about 700,
Okay.
650 to 700.
okay.
Okay. My question was there more than that? But that's what you emailed me back then, some information?
Yeah, there would be more than that, because what I
Okay.
gave you had all those 8 departments on it, not just 4 of them.
Okay, you're saying 4 with figures. I saw, 8, some had figures, some didn't.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're saying the others may have dollar amounts also?
Well, of course, all 8 of them had revenues within those departments.
Okay,
4 of those departments are not included in these figures.
okay, okay. So the total revenue figure, which down at the bottom of this sheet is $1,517,592, will the total revenue figure be larger than that?
If you kept those departments within the general fund, but we've already moved them out.
Okay, okay. Okay,
The question
Yeah.
you asked me this morning really didn't have anything to do with the budget. It was that I could tell. It was more of a,
or, well, yes, funding totals,
yeah.
correct. Okay, but not general fund totals?
No.
Okay. Well, I'm not for simply just moving surplus carryover back in to balance the budget.
You're on 3?
Well, I'm looking, at 3, or certainly, 1 is that case, but more so 2 is that case, and 3 is that case, but to a slightly lesser degree. And the amount of being, moved from, back from carryover back into the budget.
So Chair Huxley, I just have one question. Are you for not moving any of the carryover?
I am at this point, yes,
Okay.
looking at just not here, in front of us, and getting, but going into next year with some reserves or carry forward also, yes.
Well, I definitely think there should be some
Yes.
reserves.
Yeah.
I'm not sure whether
Yeah.
all of it should go
Okay.
over.
So,
So, Mr. Chair,
Commissioner
Can I-
Boyce?
Maybe you just explained it, but just for the interest of clarity, why would you not want to carry that forward?
Just for that reason.
For the reason, say again for me.
What has happened for the last decade, 2 decades, certainly the last decade, is that as soon as the county, because it was basically, as soon as you get it in, spend it. Okay? And even on reserves from last year, some unexpected came in, or was the year before, I forget now. But it was don't put some of those into a reserve for future maintenance, for future equipment, for future IT, hardware infrastructure support, for future vehicles within the road department, within a fleet of vehicles, which to use some of that for actually.
But we're just talking
longer
carryover now.
range. Pardon me?
Excuse me, I'm sorry.
But
We're just talking carryover, or now we're both
Well, this would be talking, talking carryover, to use some of it in longer range planning towards that end versus just spend it and forget about the reality of other costs that you're, being faced with, whether you like it or not, on a year-to-year basis. And that would be, in upgrading infrastructure, 5-year plans that we're, looking at here, even from the accountant, we're looking at it from the IT department.
Okay, but the people that paid that money
Now,
expect the services.
okay.
I appreciate the opportunity for a
Yeah.
discussion here. That money's already been budgeted. We're at critical mass here, and they don't anticipate, in my view, that it's going to be put in for a future rainy day. It's quite the storm we have right now, and so I'm just going to ask you to reconsider that. I've offered some proposals that don't take it all, don't use it all as what it was intended for. But I can't imagine why we wouldn't want to wisely, and I appreciate your comment about past boards. I don't know how accurate that is. I think we've had some very good past, maybe most of them have been good commissioners. But now we're left with the duty and the responsibility to step up to the plate and figure this out. We have $1 million there, and it has got to be put, in my view, the right spot, and that's what the taxpayers intended it for, and that's what it was collected for. And I can talk more, but I think you get the point.
And I hope you get my point.
Okay. So you're afraid if
I'm
we put it in
saying-
a 2018-19 budget, it's going to be, it'll be wasted if we don't. I'm just shocked by that.
Mr. Chair, could I just bring something up? I'm going to relate this.
Commissioner Gold.
I'm going to relate this to the port of Brookings Harbor. Right now, we have all of this maintenance, deferred maintenance, that cannot be taken care of because there was no forethought or contingency fund put forth. And I think it's really important to have a contingency fund because stuff happens.
This buys us time. And again, I appreciate the discussion. The Port of Gold Beach has $1 million in the bank because they've been incredibly well managed. I'm not saying the Port of Brookings hasn't. It's maybe.
Oh, there's some things in the past that
I
were not.
understand. I just don't want to point fingers, but the point is, is that we're trying to buy some time here. And if we're, I think then as leaders of this and these communities, we need to say specifically where, if we're not going to do it across the board, and then I think the three of us have the responsibility to say, okay, where are we going to cut? Where are we going to cut 20? Over here we're going to cut 5. I mean, is it the district attorney? Where are those cuts going to be? I think we have to really show some courage and step up and say, yeah, if we're not going to use this money that was set aside for the 2017-18 budget.
Well, I think the departments probably know a whole lot better where they can cut than we do, and
No,
that's
it's
why.
not. We have to prioritize which ones, because it can't all, the math doesn't work if we're not specific on which services we're going to compromise and maybe even do without.
I would just like to say, there's several departments in the general fund that there's one employee and a very small budget besides that, and I don't know how you're going to cut 10% from that. I think that with the 3% cut already, then doing a 13% cut across the board, I just think, I understand what Commissioner Gold said, and I understand what Commissioner Huxley said, but I think that if we do increase the carryover balance a little bit, there's a history of carryover balance, and it's larger than is being budgeted right now. So if we do use some of that carryover, then we can sustain that budget. I don't think it's using all the money. And I do find it irresponsible to use all of it or most of it. But I also think it's irresponsible not to use any of it. It's fiscally irresponsible not to use what you have available when you need it. And I don't think that the amount that I proposed, or a smaller amount than that, but not to use any of it, I really couldn't agree with that.
So I have a question. What percent carryover would you recommend?
I would recommend somewhere between 30 and 50% of the carryover to be used.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair. Your original was 50%, I think.
My original was 50%.
A little more, maybe 52%, or yes, thank you.
Well,
It's actually
the
less than
available is
50%.
about, well, there's
Oh, you're
missing
right,
a
I'm
zero
sorry.
there. It's about $1 million,
Less than
or
50%.
Yeah.
approximately. Correct?
So 450 out of 977, it's 40-something percent.
No, you're right on that.
I'm just trying to,
So right now, we have about a 14% carryover. That's total.
You're talking about 977,000?
Right,
Carry forward?
yeah. I just said 1/7,
Okay,
because the total budget is about 7 million.
okay.
And so that's about a 14% carryover. I know in the schools, we've said we want to keep it a 10% carryover. So if we did say 4% of that would be 400,000 of the million that's sitting there.
4%, 40%.
yeah,
Oh,
so-
not 40%. Well, yeah, we don't want to do 40%. 40%, yeah.
Okay.
So, Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Boyce?
thank you. So maybe we can, since it's a workshop, maybe we can put on the table, so to speak, what we can agree on. We seem to be able to agree that we have a $1.1 million shortfall, and that seems to be pretty
With the
safe.
direction that was given last Wednesday, correct?
Okay, thank you. We agree that we have a serious responsibility here to try and figure this out along with the Budget Committee members. We realize that we have, I'm assuming that you're agreeing with what I'm saying so far, and that with this revenue shortfall, we have responsibility to find additional revenue. And there's an urgency with that, if that's a possible objective. So do we have an agreement on that? As a board, as leaders of this county, that we need to find additional revenue as soon as we possibly can?
Among other things, yes. We also
course.
need to consolidate, make other responsible cuts, because we have no issues when it's a mandated increase, such as PERS.
Okay,
We
so-
find it, because it's mandated by law. We have to.
Well, I think that goes without saying, and I think we have an
But
agreement
I
there.
think,
So I'm glad to hear
Yeah.
you say that you believe we do need to find additional revenue for
as
the
we
county.
need to make additional consolidation and cuts to this budget.
But are we talking
also
long-term here?
on it. Oh, I think we'd have to talk long-term. If we had done long-term years ago, we wouldn't perhaps be where we are today.
Okay,
Yes.
so that's going to be an incentive for me to come before you again with a possible sales tax research committee. So I'll just keep beating that drum until I can get some board support. Thank you.
So back to the carry forward. I'm open to a small amount, and I say a small amount, 25 to 30%. And I think the rest needs to be cuts within the departments.
So would
Be
30,
that personnel, or what again, of certain departments, depending upon what the respective supervision in those departments, rather than, I don't think it's up to us, or I don't think it would be taken well, and I wouldn't, if I was in their shoes, would not take it well if this board starts to say, okay, assessor, for example, you'll cut this many people from your department, or the clerk, you'll cut this, or somebody else will cut that. I think that was addressed last Wednesday. Those cuts, given some dollar direction, need to be done by the respective departments.
So if I use 30%, which I'm going to assume is $400,000,
wait,
I don't have a calculator with me.
Well, it's more like
30% of a
300,000.
million.
It's about
I think
300 if there's a
about
million.
300,000.
I'm talking 30% of the 977.
Yeah.
We're on the same
Thir-
page.
30% of a million is 300.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So 300,000.
Talking about maybe 300,000. And would you like me to pursue the CBAC recommendations that I mentioned? Those cuts total
Would you
$345,000.
run
Now we're
those?
up to
Would you
645.
run by those again?
Okay, so,
Let's go back to,
okay, so number 6C in the CBAC's recommendations was cut the emergency services overtime budget. That's 13,000, rounded $14,000.
what was that?
Number 6C.
6C.
Now, where does that fall under the sheriff's department? Emergency
Well,
services?
kind of under this
Law enforcement?
law enforcement. I kind of put him in charge of doing it because it was him or me. He's not really under the sheriff, the emergency services.
Yeah, I thought yeah. I would not want, without input
Yeah.
from the respective department, to make, because
Yeah.
it was a CBAC recommendation, and not to take
Well, I'm
these
looking
necessarily
at-
verbatim
I'm
on these
looking at
recommendations.
the history of using
Yeah.
that, and there hasn't been a lot of history using it. I think it's a placeholder.
Okay,
So that's why I'm recommending it.
okay.
Number 7A was a proposal by the surveyor of some payroll changes, and it's about $11,340. CBAC proposal number 8 was close the cable TV fund and move those resources into the general fund. I'm not going to include moving county council in general fund. I'm going to recommend county council pay goes to the admin fees.
Which was that again, Louise?
Number 8,
Okay, how much did that save?
that particular part saves $65,000, but there's also a carryover balance in that fund, and if you're going to move that, everything to the general fund, it would be a one-time transfer of $120,000.
So plus 55 one time, 65 and then 55 one time?
So it would be 65,000 and 120,000.
Okay, 120.
So the carryover was 120.
Yes. And then the CBAC recommendation number 9 was to close the county lands. It's just kind of sitting there, not having any use to it as far as I know. I don't know the history on it and whether you can or can't, but $20,000 is sitting there.
And which is that again?
The county lands fund. I'd have to look at the budget description and see what that fund was doing.
Yeah, that may be required. I
I just don't know.
Was that
And
20
then
that you said?
Yeah, 20,000.
One
And-
time, that would be one time,
Yeah,
correct?
yeah. And then the juvenile department had given CBAC a way to cut 30% of his budget, and I just took the payroll part of it of 129,000. I'm not sure if they could continue to operate with the $7,000 part of it that was materials and services.
See, personally, I don't see that that's appropriate just because CBAC recommended it for one department
No,
only.
the
That would be my-
department has not only 129, I mean, there's some there's some other things in there besides payroll, which is not buying another vehicle and things like that. And they are things that Director Trost has mentioned to me on the phone, but we haven't had a meeting about it yet. So I don't know if I could take that full 120 or 30,000, but we could probably have part of it at least.
So is that one time also?
Well,
Or
no, that's sustainable.
ongoing? Okay.
See,
Because it would-
again, I would not support that here because I think we can't get too tied to think that we have to follow verbatim any single recommendation here from CBAC or anybody else. I think
Well-
we're talking combinations or variations, but I
Well,
don't.
Commissioner Huxley, you did ask me to talk to the department heads once again and see if they could find anything more in their budgets to cut. These are some of the recommendations that
I
we can.
understand that.
And
Yeah.
I just said that I would not recommend cutting the juvenile department 30%, but we have had a short discussion that there are things that a juvenile can do that's more than the 3% cut that I have already asked him to do, so.
And I agree with that approach, but I think it's that approach that has to be with a lot of the other respective departments too. And it would be somewhere in between, but I do not think that because one has come forward and CBAC mentioned just one, that we want to get really focused on just one department and 30%. I just don't think that's realistic.
Mr.
Probably not fair to all the other departments either, really.
Well, no, I
Or
think,
just-
no, not at all.
Yeah.
Well, if I'm not going to do an across-the-board type cut, and I'm going to ask these departments, there are going to be some departments that's going to have contributions to this balancing, and there are going to be some that don't.
Correct.
And if I come up extremely short because I'm not voluntarily getting those, then I'm just worried about the
No.
timeline that I have to balance this budget, and I would like to get some solid figures so I can continue and get a published budget ready for that budget committee.
What's your deadline?
Well, the 24th, seriously, because by then I need to have everything back from the departments. I need to have a balanced budget at that time and start putting all those figures into a spreadsheet that is the proposed budget document, and that has to be done and balanced and printed and assembled for the budget committee.
And Commissioner Gold, we have that calendar.
Yeah, we do.
We need
I
to,
just don't
you know,
have it
yeah,
sitting in front of me.
I think
But
I brought it with me.
But I'm just
back
trying to
here.
tell you the tasks
Yeah.
the reason that I have to have those back from the department heads by the 24th of this month is because I cannot put all that information into a huge document, get that document balanced and prepared and printed and ready to hand out in just a couple of days. It's going to take a couple of weeks.
I
So-
understand. I would
That's why
like
I'm-
to, I would like to see or to ask you, and with concurrence of the board, to have that same type of discussion that you've had with the juvenile director, the juvenile department, with some of the other departments over the next week or less than the next week, and come back with something versus us.
So
Sure.
if I'm
Okay.
coming back with something, I'm
Okay.
coming back outside of a general meeting where you cannot give me the direction. I wanted to have direction by next Wednesday, and in order to have that, I have to have all these conversations this afternoon
Okay?
by 5 o'clock.
Mr. Chair, I think we've already been down this path. So I really understand the the anxiety that I'm
Then-
feeling for you here. So here's the proposals, these
Then-
balanced
then some-
budgets, pick
go ahead.
one.
Well,
You're just
I
gonna
don't-
have to use some more carryover than 30%.
So-
It's the right
no,
thing
I
to
think
do.
we need to have some more cuts. in
And
some of
further,
the other
Mr. Chair, I
departments.
appreciate your comment on the juvenile department. I think we're definitely in agreement there.
So,
Well, I'd like to propose that I have an item on next week's general session, and that I don't have to provide any kind of proposals by 5 o'clock tonight, and have some discussions with the department heads and bring those to you at that meeting. I don't think I can prepare something by 5 o'clock tonight to have in a budget, a packet.
okay.
But
I think that's very reasonable.
I think
I really
that's-
would like to have a decision made
Okay.
next week. I mean,
By
you
next
could,
week.
your discussion right
Direction,
now
I'm
is a
sorry.
discussion.
Yes.
But to give me the direction, are decisions that have to be made about exactly what dollars we're going to do to balance the budget.
So, Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Boyce?
thank you. Do we have consensus then she does not need to go to the department heads again?
No, that wasn't the,
Well,
That's
okay.
not
So
what she said at
what
all.
are we agreeing to?
I'm
We're gonna
going
send her
to
the-
go to the department heads once again, see if they can, outside of the 3% that they're already doing, if there's anything else that they can do. Is there anything else in those budgets that we can look at? And then I will get a list of those. And I have this small list here too, that I have. It's, even without the juvenile, it's still, a couple $100,000 right there that I can still do. And, see where we are, I guess.
So, Mr.
well,
Chair,
plus using,
Commissioner
Uh,
Bowe?
plus using 300, was it 300 or 400 from the contingency? 300.
300.
Or from the carryover?
Carryover.
300,
I
yeah.
call it contingency, same.
Commissioner Boyce?
just a quick question. Do you feel like the department heads have stepped up to the
I do think they are.
and give you
and
the information that
I think it's been said many times during these proposals and recommendations that we are dealing with departments with bare bones budgets and minimum staff. So to look even harder, I don't know how much that is going to gain us.
Which
Because
is the
I
basis
think
for
that
my
they have
question.
looked
Thank you.
hard every year for the past, I don't know, 5, 6 years or so.
at least,
And they have skeleton budgets. So I know that they're, I don't know what else can be come up with, and I'm not real hopeful that we'll be able to, just from that and the 300,000 and the 200,000 I have here, still be able to balance the budget. I just don't know if I can. So.
Well, I think that the juvenile department came forward overboard.
Yes.
I think that the other departments need to keep that in mind and see what they can come back with, and then the board will make final decisions
Okay.
next week to do what I hope we don't have to do, and the department heads can do it instead.
Okay, well, we'll.
Rather than a
certainly try.
percent across the board is what
Yeah,
you're talking about.
I don't think that's the way to do it. And I say, keeping in mind what the juvenile director did, which I think is excessive, and I
Yeah.
think the other departments need to look at that.
Okay, and I just
And
don't
then-
know what, with their staffing levels and their budgets right now, how much more I'm
And
going
that
to
will
be able
give
to
us
get out of it.
some additional time to look at that too.
Okay,
And again, some of these numbers down here, while they were, they're not large other than, the couple of them until we get into the cable TV fund. Those were larger numbers there. But that's what I would suggest at this point. That you
Okay.
go back.
I
And
can do
that
that.
gives, that
And
gives.
get your arm
a little
twisting
bit-
skills.
Well, no, but that gives a little more time to, with the discussion here, with the information that Commissioner Boyce put out, with the information that, I have it here somewhere, that you put out, to everyone and the public and was up on the screen, to looking at that also.
Yeah, and I did
Okay.
have another handout. I don't know if I talked about it very much, but it's, this is just showing what the non-departmental revenues are, and that's this number
Correct. That was a very large number
down here.
that was,
That's the non-departmental revenues that is supporting the two froms in the other departments.
and that number,
Pardon me?
Louise, there is a $40,000 difference.
Oh, okay, yeah. All right. I'll fix it.
So it looks like there needs to be a 1.1 $1,146,000
Well, there's still some fluidity in some of these numbers because I'm still looking at, I'm responsible for budgeting for like non-departmental and there's a couple in here that there's been talks about certain things on them. So these are kind of still a little bit fluid. They're as close as I could get right now, so.
Well,
go ahead, Commissioner Boyce.
Just a quick question. But you are, not to put you on the spot here, because I think you've done a great job, but I just want to be as confident as I can on the 1.1, based on the information you have now, that's
Okay.
reasonably reliable.
So I'm looking at this says 5443 and this says 5483 revenues. And I just have to look at it. I don't know. All I did was take this and delete some that were drug grants and stuff. So
That was the last thing that we did too.
yeah,
To
and it
come
was
up when
very
we saw
quick
the
and I didn't,
really quick.
Yeah.
Because it was when we saw on the prior sheet, when we saw that the large number, a non-departmental, the question was for people,
What is-
what comprises non-departmental?
what
And
the
that's what-
revenues in
Correct.
non-departmental.
And that's what
Yeah. So
what
I'll
prompted that
I'll
second
have
sheet.
to just look at that one
Yeah.
more time and
Okay.
see if that's, which one of the numbers is correct. I don't know right now. I'd have to
Okay.
go back and look.
Do you feel like you're swimming in numbers?
Yes, I do.
Poor girl.
Well, it's raining, keep swimming.
Keep swimming. It's flooding, actually.
We have to have a little bit of humor here.
So do we,
So,
Commissioner Boyce, you have any other?
Just,
At this time.
I kind of conclude here. Today's the day. I admire that you want to protect that $1 million in carryover. I really do. And I think that's responsible, with the exception of exactly where we are. And I know this bears repeating, and I am repeating myself, but I think I have an obligation to do that. I made it clear that at the end of my 4-year term, I want to have $2 million in the bank, and sure, I get laughed at times, but and I'm not overly optimistic either. I'm just realist in some of the things that we have happening at the legislature, at the national level, timber, all the above, that can contribute to that optimism and maybe even grow on it. So having money in the bank is the smartest thing we can do, shy of cutting services that are really going to affect the welfare of the people of this county. And so it comes to no surprise, I'm going to keep saying that. And to have carryover sit in a bank with 1% presumably, that's not good business to me. So I appreciate that you're willing to look at a possibility of 30%, but I'm looking at 90%. That's how far apart we are, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Gold, do you have any other
No more
comments?
comments.
Does any, Chair Ford, you want to come up?
Sure.
Move this back over here if we want. Those things. Commissioners, Sheriff Ward from the Sheriff's Office. I just want to kind of touch bases. There is a solution here. And I know during the last Board of Commissioners meeting, we talked about no road funds and no carryovers. And I've had several conversations with Louise, and even with her own words, and she even said it today, it is irresponsible not to use some carryover to help us out on this budget. But I also submit that it'd be irresponsible not to use some road funds. And let me explain why. Over the many years, you know, not many years, but several years that they've been using road funds, 2 years ago, I voted against using road funds, which they didn't, because there was money to balance the budget at the time without using road funds. Last year was getting a little bit more tighter. And this year, there is no other options to balance a budget without using something that is, you have the right to use. And I'm looking at this ORS, the ORS 368.706. And just real quickly, what it says, notwithstanding ORS 294060, appointment of monies received by counties from federal forest reserves to road and school funds, and 368705 County Road Fund, monies described in ORS 294060, appointment of monies received by counties from federal forest reserves to the road and school funds that are received by a county listed in subsection 2 of this section and deposited into their county road fund may be expended for patrolling within the county by the county law enforcement official. And it lists 7 counties: Coos County, Curry County, Douglas County, Josephine, Klamath, Lane, and Lynn. And it says monies in the county road fund and expended for patrolling under subsection 1 of this section may be used for solely a direct cost of indirect cost associated with patrolling. What I'm getting at is, says, if you don't have an option, you have an option. We're not talking about, you know, there's been talk about people, or from several people, it says, if we continue road funds, we're going to be out of road funds in 5-6 years. Well, every time that we've been budgeted road funds, it's cost reimbursement. We don't use it all. We haven't even come close. This last year, I think there's 1.7 million, and at the end of the year, I'm assuming we'll be about 1 million, 1.2, something like that. So there's $500,000 or $600,000 we're not using because we haven't been able to fill positions in the road. The no job security and short pay that isn't comparable to the rest of the county's agencies. So with the CBAC's proposal and Louise's proposal to use a little bit of road funds, that's all we're, you know, we can use it. We're not going to run out of money in 5 or 6 years by only using $400,000 or $500,000 this year. We need to stabilize ourselves, and like others have said, find a solution to get us past this point. We can't lose what we got now. I don't like the idea of competing with the rest of the county agency or departments just to keep us whole. We depend on the other county agencies and county departments, the DA's office, the juvenile, the assessors, whatever. If you cut them to the point where they're not, you know, they can't do their jobs, then we can't do our jobs. Right now, we've been cut. You say we started out with like a 30% cut. Well, actually, it's about 100% cut from the time that I started. There was 18 deputies when I started back in 1990. Now I'm down to 7, and we can only patrol 10 hours a day. And the other times, you know, it's me and the captain responding, or Marine deputy taking them off what they're getting paid to do to help us with some in-progress calls. So my point is, it's we can use road funds. The law says we can. I'm not a proponent of using road funds, but it's our only option to keep us whole. So I'm just asking you to reconsider that. If we're looking at a $1.1 million shortfall, use some of the funds, the carryover funds. If you only want to use 30-40%, then use $500,000-$600,000 from the road funds for patrol. That money then go back towards not having to cut so bad in the other departments where they've already cut to the bone and need to go further. So that's just my 2 cents.
Okay. Thank you, Sheriff. Mr. Chairman. Commissioner Boyce?
Thank you. The 22nd, we had a workshop with CBAC and also county accountant's proposal. And I ask you via phone, please listen to these people, and I'm going to say that again. Public safety is our biggest responsibility. And yes, I've not hid my my deliberate opinion that the road funds are there. You have the support of the Budget Advisory Committee, and you have the support of County Council and, County Accountant. And I'm just gonna, what the sheriff said a minute ago, a quote here, we can't afford what we have to lose. Because if we do, trying to build it back will be, who knows, the multiplication on that to try and get what we have now, what we have left. And one of my first meetings said, I don't want to give up any more territory. And I'm just going to keep saying that. I agree with him completely. And the Citizen Budget Advisory Committee and Accountant Colstrom, thank you.
Did anybody else from the audience want to come on up? County Assessor Coleman?
Afternoon, Commissioners. Jim Colon, Curry County Assessor. I'm in complete agreement with what I'm hearing from Commissioner Boyce and County Sheriff. And I think the biggest reason why is because, we could choose to go down the path to make the sort of cuts that appear to be preferred by Commissioners Huxley and Gold. However, I don't think that we properly prepared the public for what cuts in services that might mean to them and how that might impact them in their daily lives. I think it puts at risk the public health, safety, and welfare of the citizens of this county. And so by the time you go through the budget committee meetings in May, there's just no time for you to prepare the public for what it is they're looking at. I think using a combination of the road funds and some of the surplus cash carryover allows you the opportunity to have that conversation for an entire year with the citizens of Curry County. And we might have had that conversation already if we had gotten some of this direction back in September when we asked for it, or even in December when we asked for it. But now it's really coming at the 13th hour. So that's my thoughts on that. The other request that I have for you is I sent you all an email earlier this week. We do need to make some preparation for submitting a CAFA grant, which contributes almost $200,000 towards the cost of assessment and taxation. The CAFA grant submission deadline is May 1st. That doesn't mean that after there's a submission that there couldn't be some changes to it. But my question for you today is, would it be possible to get at least a consensus as to whether or not you could look at the CAFA grant at your workshop on May 26th? Because if we don't have that time, then just now getting some indication.
That's a Friday. May 26th is a Friday.
Oh, excuse me, not May 26th, I meant April 26th, because of the application deadline is May 1st. So we have to have something approved by you.
What's currently on that workshop? Is that Judge Margolis?
No, he's the 24th of May. He's not until May. I don't know
I would,
if there's anything right now or not. Well, you're saying because in order to make a decision, though, we couldn't, it couldn't be a workshop, it would have to be a special meeting, correct?
Special meeting is what I'm asking
Okay.
for, yes.
but not, you can't make next week's, meeting.
I think we're just getting some new information today. I just don't see how that would be possible.
Okay.
Do you have to have the budget before you can
Yes.
do that? Okay.
So you're asking for
A special
a
meeting.
special meeting on the 26th. I don't see a problem.
I don't have a problem
Especially
with
if we
that.
have probably a workshop anyway, you know, even if we'd have to list it separately and have a special.
So if
Meeting.
that's
Sure.
something of a consensus, then that's
Sure.
something I could
Sure.
plan for.
Get the-
Certainly
get the
here.
Materials
Okay.
to the BOC,
Yes.
office by the week prior.
Correct.
Yes, absolutely.
Correct. Okay. Yes.
Thank you.
So we want a special meeting on the 26th. Anyone else? Oh, Director Trost?
Juvenile Director Jay Trost. I would just ask that there's been a lot of discussion in the last few meetings about parks and juvenile and the how the two are consolidated. I build the budgets to be pretty intertwined because the juvenile staff help manage the parks and parks help offset some of those salaries. And so the one thing that I would ask is if that discussion is going to continue, that I'm given some direction. Otherwise, I can't build an appropriate budget between the two. So,
Okay.
it's been weighing heavily on my head, in terms of trying to come up with appropriate budget numbers. Obviously, I'm in tremendous support of keeping the two married together because they do absolutely work and they support each other and I don't know, separating them really does hurt both departments. And so I would ask that if that is going to be some of the future direction, that I'm given that in advance notice so that I can prepare what we discuss with county accountant appropriately. Secondly, just some questions on carryover. I'm a little fuzzy on this. So this budget does not include our current fiscal year's carryover because we don't know what that is, correct? So next year there will be carryover from this fiscal year. We just don't know how much that looks like. Is there, because we're talking about contingency and that will be there. So is there a possibility that that can be projected? Because I see on the worksheets that are given out to us every month, it says, you've spent 51% of your budget at 67% of the year. And so, obviously I look at that so I know exactly where I am at all times and know what I can look forward to and what I can't look forward to, purchasing in the next month or two, or if I need to make a different appropriation. So, I would ask that if it is possible to forecast what the potential carryover for next year's budget could look like, given our current spending and the pattern it's at, now. I think that would give the board some large understanding or consideration for what next year's carryover will look like. Because we're not talking about what we're actually going to have carryover this year. This is from the 15-16 fiscal year that we're talking about.
But it does affect that carryover for this year because if it's revenue into this year.
What would be next year?
That's more than the budget
Sure.
revenue. So you don't have expenditures against it, so there will be.
I'm sorry, you're going to need to, if there's any more dialogue, come on up and if
But-
you would quickly repeat that so we get it on the record. And please identify yourself.
Louise Kallstrom, County Accountant. So the revenue from last year into this year, there was a budgeted revenue, and it comes over as a revenue. So it's more than the budgeted revenue, but there's no budgeted expenditures against it. So it will continue to carry over into the following year because it won't be spent this year. So that's why
So
it's
it'd be in addition to
It-
our current carryover
our
from this year?
current carryover from this year, yes. But that it is part of the current carryover for this year. So it's not in addition to it. It's just a piece of it. Okay.
So that can help clarify that, to me, that, there is carryover for the next fiscal year that will come out of this fiscal year, even if we were to use the 977, or this part of it, yes.
Mr. Chair, I have one
Commissioner
question. Is there
Gold?
any way of predicting the
Good
amount of
question.
carryover that there will be for this year that would go into next year?
Sorry, I'd probably add just that.
Because he was talking about, well, he's 67% of the year's up and he's used 51% of his budget. Obviously, there's going to be
Carry forward.
carry forward.
So when I met with department heads, we tried to forecast, I had through December, which is a half a year. And then when I met with each department head, we kind of went through the revenues and what was still expected and what we could have, and went through expenditures and tried to figure out what we would have by June 30th. So we had an actual through December, and then we had projected through June, and then we had a projected final column. And that's basically as much as we got those filled out, what I gave to the department heads as they're trying to build their budget, because they're going to compare. When they build their budget, they're going to look at this year's budget, they're going to look at this year's actual, and they're going to look at the history of the actual while they make their decisions. So I don't know how complete all of those are for the general fund, but I could try to forecast as much as I can what each department is doing within the general fund and see if I can come up with a forecast.
That would be really helpful.
It's kind of a
And it's
little bit of work, so I
kinda,
don't know how
iffy
long it's
to-
going to take me to do that.
Okay.
Hopefully I
But
can
that
have it
would be
for you
very
by next
helpful
week. I
because-
just don't know.
Yeah, if we're going to be using carryover, if there were a whole lot projected carryover, then that could help us make
Okay.
that decision.
All right.
Thanks.
Thanks, Jim.
Yeah, sorry. Well, I can help you with mine. I can give you that. That was my comments. I really do appreciate all the dialogue today and look forward to getting some direction. And I hope that the use of carryover and if road funds need to be used to help keep us sustained so we find a solution and keep our citizens' services intact. Thank you.
Thank you. Did anybody else in the audience care to comment? No? Okay,
Well,
I
that's
think
pretty good. No yelling or
we,
screaming. Great.
Commissioner
ready
comment
to,
time
No,
on workshop?
a
I
workshop.
can't believe you haven't grabbed that gavel yet.
I have a no, I don't.
So if I may, Mr. Chair, I'm going to hand out some information here. Yes, I've forgiven you for telling me I'm clueless last week on my discontent with
Okay. Is this related to the subjects
Doesn't
that
have to
we're,
be.
that we're?
This is
well,
the only
got-
time we only get together once a week, so now's a good time to have a
We
dialogue.
typically don't on a workshop have commissioner
Yeah,
comments.
you can open that
or-
door, though.
Okay.
It's probably a good thing.
I choose not to have the workshop, and we've discussed the purpose of the workshop unless you want to, agree. I do not.
No, it's fine. I don't think we need any more.
I'll
Okay.
take those back then, because you'll get them later. Actually,
I think
no.
because
maybe
you
do-
hand those,
be a
once you
good
hand
idea if-
those, they should go into the public record.
He's got one.
So, and that
Doesn't
should be
matter.
added to.
So you
Yeah.
Not gonna discuss it, I would give
No?
it back to him.
Okay,
If it's
then
in
here it
public
is back.
record, we can-
So it'll be on the agenda next
Okay.
go around. Thank you.
Okay, then it is 2:29. We'll adjourn the meeting. Thank you.
I saw you working on that budget stuff.
Hey,
Here you go.
of course you can. Yeah, he doesn't need one.
Well, and then this is the one about, if you want this Oh, those are his three budget proposals?